Good evening to you, everyone. I am WSAV's Tina Tice Shaw here in the WSAV studios along with Ben Singer. We are delighted to join you tonight here on WSAV.com and also on the WSAV Facebook page for a candidates forum for Chatham County Commission. And we are especially excited for the fact that we have a very great partnership with Georgia Southern University to bring you this forum. So tonight, as we begin our first segment, we will have those candidates who are running for Chatham County Commission. But before we get to their first segment, as they tell you why they wish to become Chatham County Commission chairman, I'd like to share this with some of the candidates who I'm sure are watching tonight. And those candidates were not invited to this forum, and it's simply for the reason that they are not contested in the June primary. However, as we get closer to November, they will be contested, their races will be contested, and they will be invited to the next political forum that we have. So I just wanted to make sure that we set the record straight and let those candidates know that, of course, we would love to have you at our next forum as we participate with the Georgia Southern University. Ben, I'll toss it over to you to welcome the candidates for Chatham County Commission chairman and give them an opportunity to tell us why they deserve the job.
Okay, we're going to give everyone 60 seconds to give an opening statement. We're going to have a timer here in the studio with us, and we're going to begin with former Tybee Mayor Jason Buelterman. So we'll ask our web host to unmute the mayor, and Mr. Buelterman, when you are ready, you have 60 seconds.
Great, thank you. I want to thank Georgia Southern and WSAV and everybody involved with putting this on. We greatly appreciate it. We're obviously in a very odd time in our history, and this is providing a great chance for the voters to get to know who their options are for chairman. I think the leadership at any level is like a relay race, and you want to take the baton from the person, Chairman Scott, and you want to hand that baton off to the next person 4 or 8 years later in a better position than you took that baton. I think you need to have the experience, the energy, the vision, and the temperament to do that. We have a lot of opportunities in Chatham County going forward, and we have a lot of challenges. And I think it's important that we pick the right person to be the next chairman for the next 4 or 8 years. And again, I appreciate y'all doing this and look forward to this forum.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Up next, we have County Commissioner Jay Jones. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon. This is Commissioner Jay Jones. Once again, echo the sentiments. Appreciate this opportunity for us to get a platform where all 4 of us can discuss and work together as far as getting the information out to our community. It's vital that we have leadership moving the narrative forward. We have COVID-19 who is right here in our hands, in our nest, and whoever is the next chairman of our county is going to have a very big discussion and big decisions that we have to make as far as adjusting our budget to make sure that we can put Chatham County back in place. We understand that we have been affected through education, economics, and all kind of variety of variables within our community, but we can get together strong with the right leadership at hand. And that's part of the reason why I said I want to step forward. I took the time to make sure I put my head and my hands and my talents into all the different ways of learning to be the best Chatham County chair. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, sir. Thank you all again for putting this together.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Now we want to open the floor to former County Commission Chairman Billy Hare.
Here tonight, I also want to thank WSAV and Georgia Southern for hosting, especially in these hard times. It's really a big job. We've got 260,000 people in Chatham County. We have a $230 million budget. We have 1,600 employees. And I think when the voters out there look at the size of this job, the complexity of this job, and then evaluate each one of the 4 of us, I think it would be clear. I have the only person in this race that's actually done the job, and I did it for 8 years and did it very well. So I think when you look at the job and you look at the skills and background that I bring, I think the voters will trust the voters. They'll make the right decision. Thank you.
Mr. Hare, thank you. Up next is the fourth and final candidate, Commissioner Chester Ellis.
Mute yourself, she says. Good evening. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Let me also echo the sentiments of thanking you two for allowing WSAV and Georgia Southern for putting this on tonight. Tonight, my heart is with the citizens navigating through one of the hardest times in history. The truth is, COVID-19 is strong. However, we are stronger. For over 30 years, as an educator, as a public servant, as a proud father, and as a lifelong citizen of Chatham County, I have stood on the forefront of our community. As the current vice chairman, I have advocated for economic advancement, safe neighborhoods, quality education at every level, and quality health care for every citizen. Due to COVID-19, the economy recovery will be our greatest challenge. It's time to place people over politics. As chairman, I have used the smart business growth.
And that's your time. Please wrap it up. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on into our first, well, as many questions that we can get to. For those of you just joining us at home, we're going to try to do 4 different segments here in these next 2 hours or so. So now we're going to move on to the question portions here. We're going to go in the same order that everyone was introduced. So we're going to start with Jason Buelterman, and here's the question. Savannah Mayor Van Johnson has been credited with showing leadership during the current COVID-19 crisis through early action and by frequent public addresses. Does the county commission chair have a similar responsibility, and how do you envision your role during a time of crisis? Mr. Buelterman.
Yeah, to answer your question, I do think that Chatham Commission Chairman has an obligation to be at the forefront of the communication and the planning and coordination to deal with this crisis, just as that position has to do for hurricanes. And I do commend Mayor Johnson. He made a very courageous and difficult decision in canceling the St. Patrick's Day parade, but ultimately I think that has proven to be the right decision. And I would commit myself to working hand in hand with the mayor and the director of SEMA. I think we have a wonderful Chatham Emergency Management group, and they do a great job. But I think it's absolutely critical that the chairman, in times of emergency, is out front communicating even granular level details to the citizens. People crave information right now. They want to know what's going on at our nursing homes, what's going on with local efforts to acquire testing from the private sector. What are we doing to help people? You know, we've had a 3,900% increase in unemployment claims in Chatham County, in Liberty County and Bryan County from March of last year to March of this year. That is a massive increase, and it's going to require leadership, coordination, and communication from not only the municipalities, but from the county chairman to make sure that that we do the best we can to help our citizens through this tough time.
All right, Mr. Buelterman, thank you. Mr. Jones, you're up next.
All right, thank you. I don't disagree or dispel anything that was said before. I do want to make sure that we echo these sentiments. It's not just the mayor, and when I say that, Van Johnson's job, it's all mayor's jobs. It's all our jobs as elected officials to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep our state of Chatham calm. And in doing that, to keep our state of Chatham calm is to be able to not just listen to the chairman's side, but the chairman should be listening to the 8 different districts that make up the county. And listen to those 8 different districts that make up the county gives an opportunity for all those areas to be able to have a voice to be heard, and an opportunity for us to be able to see the various problems that may be associated to COVID-19. How COVID-19 affects the 6th district is different from how it affects the 8th district. So not just looking at the mayor's perspective, but looking at it at the county perspective, because we divide the county in 8 parts for a reason. We divide it equally for a reason. We divide it equally for a reason so we can understand the perspective of how the county should roll. And I am a firm believer in what the chair said a couple of weeks ago, and he's continued to say it. We need to follow the lead of the Department of Health, and we need to follow the lead of SEMA, because those are the agencies that are the government agencies that are put out there to make sure that our direction is made. I am so supportive as far as what Van did, as far as the leader is concerned. But I think what the people wanted was they wanted to hear the county speak just as loud as what Van was saying. So
that's your time. All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. Billy Hare, you're up.
I think he did the right thing at the right time, and it was a very courageous decision. But I think it's a two-part decision. It's one thing to make the correct decision to shut it down. It's equally important to when you open it up and how you open it up. So I think we're halfway there. But I think it's important that we open up correctly, not to put people at risk, but also not to destroy businesses. And I also think that in this particular case, it's very important to do it on a regional basis. You know, it doesn't make any difference if Fort Wentworth has one set of rules and Garden City have another set of rules and Poole have another set of rules. It's important to coordinate with the other municipalities and make it as a regional decision. But to make the right decision to close it down, but you also got to make the right decision to open it up.
Mr. Hare, thank you. Chester Ellis.
Let me say one of the things that the general public may not know is that the current chairman has played a vital role in this pandemic from day one. He has called together all the mayors, and what we decided to do was to let each one of the elected officials in their municipalities talk to their people. We meet often. In fact, we just met day before yesterday with the director of SEMA and with the director of our health department here, who guides us in our decisions, who helps us to understand from a health perspective. We need to hear from the experts, and we do have an expert who carries out the duties and responsibilities that he's assigned to lead forth. And our chairman, I applaud him. I applaud Van for the things that he's doing and leading his folks, but it was decided from the beginning that each mayor would talk to his constituents and his designated area. But all those are coming from a central platform where all of the mayors, along with the county manager, along with the chairman, along with the director of SEMA, along with the director of our health department, those decisions were made as a whole. It's just that Mayor Johnson took the forefront. So the county has played an active role.
Time. Thank you, Mr. Ellis. And now we will go over to Tina for question number 2.
And that question is, gentlemen, with the economic difficulties related to COVID-19 pandemic, Chatham County revenues could be below projections for many months. SLOSS revenues will certainly decline for many months, and it is likely that property tax revenues could begin declining in 2021. How will you address these shortfalls? We'll begin with Mr. Ellis.
Presently, Tina, we're in the process now of getting our budget information, and it's the county. What we have done is we have projected for the upcoming year, that's 2021. We have projected those downfall. We may not have projected that it was going to hit us this hard, but we do have projections, and we are working now with the budget office and with the county that we will come up with a budget that is suitable, that will take into consideration those things of not only how this virus will hit us, but we also have hurricane season coming. And if you remember now, we spent about $30 million when Hurricane Michael hit here, but yet we did not have to raise taxes or move the digest. And so therefore, good planning is what we need to recover from this present system.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Next, Mr. Buteman, your thoughts.
I want to say how critically important it is that governmental leaders plan for the future by setting aside money in their fund balance so they can deal with situations like this. On Tybee, we have set aside enough to operate for 10 months without any revenue whatsoever. The county has done a pretty good job. They have 30.7% of their general fund expenditures setting aside in a rainy day fund, which will also hopefully enable the county to move to a AAA bond rating, which is great. But we can, as Tina mentioned, expect a decline in revenues. I think the county is a little more buffered from that than the city of Savannah, that's more reliant on sales tax, especially with the fifth penny, which is a local option sales tax. But the county does fund a lot of its capital projects through SPLOST, and we may very well see a decrease in property tax revenue over the long term. So it's going to be incumbent upon the chairman and the commissioners to work together to make sure that we don't have to raise taxes or decrease services. There's a way to do that, but you have to plan accordingly. You have to plan in an intelligent way. Got to work with your team. And we did that on time. We went through the 2008 downturn and also through the 2 hurricanes, and didn't have to dip into our fund balance or raise the millage at all. And I would anticipate trying to do the same thing at the county level.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Tina. Well, when you look at our average, as far as what we bring in total revenue, you're looking at right about $300 million. If we have to take a cutback of anywhere from 10 to 20%, that's anywhere from $30 to $60 million. And so when we're talking about cutting that kind of revenue, we will have to make those adjustments by department and have those conversations with our departments to make sure we have those hard conversations to reduce any kind of revenue to get us back to where we need to be as far as ground one is concerned. I think there's enough leverage in some of these departments that we can make that adjustment known and make it happen. However, I don't want to jump the gun before we have to make those adjustments. We want to actually make sure that when we get to that point, if we do have to make those adjustments, then we talk about that at that time. But what we want to do is, and we understand that when you have incidents like this, you have those kind of adjustments that happen, but we don't want to make the assumption that it's going to happen on such a grand stage. So what we do want to do is put our departments on notice and say, hey, be on the notice that we're going to have to make some adjustments in the next coming budget. And at like I said, at $300 million, if you're talking about 10% as far as adjustment is concerned, that's $30 million. And so that we want to spread it across those budgetary items, that we can take that adjustment and make sure that we can control revenue and keep services and things in Chatham County still float.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Up next, Mr. Hare, how would you address these shortfalls?
Well, first, I think there's only 3 ways to do it. Either you have to raise taxes, you have to lower expenses, or you have to do a combination of both. But there's something more important even than that. Before you get to that point, you've got to have priorities. And my first priority would always be public safety. We've got to protect the citizens of this county at all costs. And I would never support any kind of tax increase or expense increase that affected public safety. My position is that we've got to make sure that people in power don't use this. You've heard the phrase, never let a crisis go to waste. If we're not careful, we will get some people to use this as a way to get in special projects and get their pet projects funded, and it can't be that way. It's got to be based on what the priorities are best for all the citizens of Chatham County, and with public safety being at the top. And then I think that we've got to cut expenses. I would not support any kind of military rate increase, nor the stealth tax that we're famous for, is we're going to raise people's assessments on their property. So politicians can go back and say, well, I didn't raise your millage rate. Well, no, you didn't, but my assessment went up 40%, so my taxes went up 40%. So I think we've got to be careful. We've got to prioritize what's most important to the citizens, and then we've got to cut expenses. I think that's the priority way, not try to raise people's taxes, because people are hurting. They're unemployed. They don't have jobs now. Their families don't have jobs. The last thing they need is for a chairman and county commission to raise taxes, and I would oppose that at any cost.
Mr. Hare, thank you. Ben is standing by now with your third question. Okay,
we may have to lower. You think we should lower the time into 60 instead of 90 seconds, just so we can get in a closing statement too? This will be the last question. There has been a great deal of concern from citizens in recent years about the county's handling of hurricane threats, evacuations, and recoveries. What do county officials need to do differently in the future? And this time we will start with Jay Jones.
All right. First off, with the pandemic at hand, with COVID-19 at hand, we got to handle the hurricane a whole lot differently if we have to go back into shelter in place, and if this pandemic actually gets out of control. That's the first thing. As far as how we should handle it, I think that we haven't handled it in a bad way. I think that we should be learning from the process every time we go through the process and making sure we're better. And I think in the last 2 or 3 hurricane seasons, we've done a lot better job as far as handling those epidemics, and I mean those hurricanes. And when what we need to do is weather the storm as when it comes about. But understanding that hurricanes are just seasonal, And sometimes we might have 3 hurricanes, sometimes you might have none. But how we handle it is based on how we put together our projects. And that's, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay, Mr. Jones, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Billy Hare.
The secret to handling hurricanes, and I handled 2 in my 8 years as chairman of the county commission, and we did it very, very well. You've got to involve everybody in the process. You cannot just be a county decision. We have to, again, involve the municipalities. The mayors have to be in on the decision. And we also need to plan ahead. We know we're going to have hurricanes. It's just a matter of when and how severe they're going to be. So we need to make sure that we plan in terms of what's priority and what's not priority. Even when we make the decision of recovering and coming back into the county, those are very important decisions. You don't think about those things. But all that has to be incorporated in the decision to evacuate. It's never an easy decision, but if you think ahead and you think what's best for the citizens, I'd rather get people out and curse me for get people out early than not getting people out in time and they sit on I-16 for 3 hours. So I think planning ahead, I've got a record of doing that, and that's the way I would handle it.
Mr. Hare, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Chester Ellis.
I happen to have had the honor and the privilege of working through the last 2 hurricanes that we had. And after each hurricane, we did a debriefing as to those things that we did good, those things that we did bad, those things we needed to improve on. When hurricane season come and we have to evacuate, we have to let everyone know. We have a plan in place that I think is an excellent plan. And what I would do is follow that plan. We have an A zone, a B zone, a C zone, and a D zone as to how we evacuate. Plus, we have to work with not only SEMA, but we have to work with GEMA. Not only GEMA, but we have to work with the federal government. And a lot of the things that we do during hurricane season and evacuation are dictated to us by the federal people. And so therefore here we in the command center, we get those updates and we be ready to move.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ellis. And we'll wrap up this question with Jason Buelterman.
Long-term plan. If you don't have a fund balance sitting aside, FEMA does not give you money back immediately. So when we had Hurricane Matthew in the county and in the city of Tybee, we had massive amounts of expenditures which we were able to pay for, not have to borrow money or anything like that, like other communities have had it done in the wake of a hurricane. Second thing is communication. You've got to communicate to people, especially in the midst of an evacuation. People are sitting in hotels in Atlanta or Macon or wherever, and they want to know what's going on. And you've got to be able to communicate, use social media, use any avenue that you can to get information to your citizens. And then finally, reentry. I mean, I think we did a pretty good job with evacuations, but I think that we could do a much better job of working collaboratively with all of the municipalities to make sure we make intelligent decisions about reentry and then informing the citizens about those decisions as far in advance as possible.
Okay, Mayor Buelterman, thank you. And I'll go to Tina for the closing lineup.
It is that time for closing statements, and we will begin with Chester Ellis. You have 30 seconds.
Let me thank you for allowing me to come in your homes and thanking WSAV and Georgia Southern for hosting this. I want to let you know that I am a people's person and the citizens of Chatham County is my business. I think that we be transparent, accountable, strong leadership. I can do this, and I believe that we can move forward together. Chatham County can move forward under my leadership. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis, thank you. Up next with this closing statement, Mr. Billy Hare.
Again, for having us. I mentioned at my outset that one of my best qualifications is I actually did the job for 8 years. I was reelected in a large voter mandate, and I think that speaks volumes. Also, I'm a U.S. Army and a Vietnam veteran. Why is that important? 40% of the citizens of Chatham County have a direct relationship to the military. I think that gives me a special perspective that other people might not have. And I think when you just look at the job that's required and the people and their qualifications, I'm confident the voters in this county will make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. And up next with his closing statement, Mr. J. Jones.
WSAV, I appreciate y'all putting this together. My platform is simple as ABC, A1 Chatham County Services, business sense for all, and community inclusion. And I made it simple because when I'm going out here in the streets, I'm talking to people, they're saying that things are too complicated. We need to make things simple. So it's a point of doing a reset so we can make sure we adjust and talk to all the people, not just some people who understand politics, but those people who don't understand politics, to make sure that we are making decisions for everybody. So I appreciate you once again for putting this platform together, and I look forward to seeing y'all out there in this world. Appreciate it again.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And we hear the final closing statement tonight for our County Commission Chairman from Mr. Jason Butelman.
Thanks.
Hold on just a second. Sorry, start over, Mayor. You were muted there for a few seconds. Go ahead.
No problem, no problem. The County Commission Chairman is a very, very important position, maybe not as well known as the Mayor of the City of Savannah, but a very important position. We need to elect somebody who has the energy to move us forward in an intelligent manner, somebody who has relevant experience, especially with respect to dealing with crises, somebody who has the temperament, who's willing to work across the aisle, with all the commissioners, with all the municipalities, with the nonprofits. We need more collaboration. And finally, somebody who has a vision to bring us from where we are now to where we want to be and to try to solve our community's problems in the short term and in the long term.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Butelman. We appreciate you. And again, we want to say to all of the candidates running for County Commission Chairman here in Chatham County, we thank you for taking part in tonight's political forum. And we hope to see you again as we get closer to the general election in November. Thank you.